Welcome to Team Draft Tactics with your host, Brian,
Yo.
Eugene,
Hello.
and me, Roger. This is a new podcast we're launching where we focus on team draft strategies versus traditional 8-person pod draft strategies. We want to give a special thank you to Jared Jenkins for allowing us to use his music for both the intro and the outros of the podcast. We really appreciate you, Jared, and super thanks. And today we want to get started with something that we hear a few pros talking about and a few podcasters talking about, and that's this concept of this OTJ format being something called a Prince format. And Brian, I'd like to kick this over to you. Can you break down what that means exactly for our listeners?
Yeah, Prince format is where rares and powerful uncommons are king. They are so much more powerful than the commons that the rares dictate how you draft, and you want to play them as much as you can. And it also is why premium removal is so important in these formats, so you can get rid of those bombs.
That was awesome, Brian. Thank you. It's interesting to see how the new play boosters and what WotC's been doing with these play boosters has really developed and kind of like sculpted how drafters in at least our limited sets, how we're thinking about drafting. And I want to know how our team and what we've been seeing with kind of like our 6-player pod formats are doing, and how we're kind of like thinking about these new play boosters and the development of the Prince format for the OTJ season. And I want to kick this question off to Eugene. Eugene, what are you seeing with these new packs, and what is the team kind of developing, the concepts we're developing in order to be better at this draft format?
So with the new play boosters, you got to do the math, right? So there are 6 players in each pod, and each player opens 3 packs. So that's a total of 18 packs opened in a draft, and each pack contains at least 1 rare or mythic. So you multiply that by the 18 packs, there's at least 3 rares or mythics per player. But because there's the potential in the play boosters for extra rares and mythics, we're seeing on average around 4 to 6 rares or mythics per player. And then when you go down to the uncommons, which are really relevant here for this Prince format, there are 4 uncommons in each pack, and multiply that by the 18 packs, there are a total of 72 uncommons. And if you divide that by the 6 players, that comes out to about 12 uncommons per player. But we are seeing more uncommons in general because of the play boosters. So there could be a little bit more than 12 uncommons per player.
That's amazing. And actually, I like how you broke it down where we kind of get a little view of what the math would kind of look like and what we're going to be seeing, especially when you said that there's 6 total players and that's 18 total packs open versus the additional 6 packs that you would have when there's 2 more players in an 8-person pod. So I can see how much more that maybe some of these synergies that we're talking about or some of these rares and uncommons become more valuable. And I could see how your argument where you guys are saying like the removal is a little stronger because you may see less of it. You may see more of it some drafts. So I can see how that plays into your draft format. And now, given that play boosters, the breakdown that you gave us, Brian, I want to kick this off to you. What do you think a good strategy to approach the 6-player team draft format is, at least for your team after the first week?
Yeah, we definitely, and we'll say this probably 100 times throughout the podcast, is you never pass any bombs. And you will always try to find a strong uncommon payoffs. These are the early picks, and removal. So almost in that order. We prioritize that, and the rest of the commons are not as powerful. So we want to make sure we pick all those things highly.
I love that, Brian. And I love that the take is actually a little bit different than what was suggested in the current and most recent Limited Resources podcast with Louis Scott Vargas and Marshall Sutcliffe, where when they're drafting, they said maybe pick 2 or 3. You're kind of, if you have one really nice payoff for like the desert theme, you start picking up lands. But I'm wondering, in what you're seeing, how early are you picking lands whenever you guys are doing your drafts? And I know you guys just had a recent draft. So Brian, were you seeing that pick 2, you were spending it on a land, or were you still looking at these uncommons and rares?
Yeah, the uncommons and rares went down to the first 3 picks for sure. Felt like you're picking power all the way up to maybe 4, even 5. But honestly, in the recent draft we had, I didn't even pick a land the first pack and a half. Maybe the other team was also taking it highly, but the way we're focusing on our picks, given that we're taking the powerful cards first, maybe the lands are a little lower on our pecking order, and they're obviously good, but and if they're on color, they're bumped up a bit, but it's hard to really know, to speculate on a, for example, green-blue land when you're only green, because you don't know if it'll be blue cards you want to splash, whereas you can just pick a powerful card or a card that fits your archetype. So that's where I've been at on it.
Well, I think it's interesting because we're talking about a 6-person draft, and the lands, the desert dual lands, the ones that deal 1 damage, they're only in 50% of the packs. So if there's 18 packs, there's only going to be 9, on average, 9 of those lands per draft, and that's very few. And a lot of things, there's a lot of things to consider about that. It's like there's 3, right? So there's 3 rounds in the draft in terms of like opening pack 1 and pack 2 and pack 3. If you don't take 1 in pack 1, then there's potentially only 6 more in the next 2 packs, right? So each pack there's potentially only 3 of those lands, and on average, and it's very, very few. And that got me thinking, like the desert payoff cards, right? Like Desert's Due, or that green
Outcaster,
Jack Tarantula, or Outcaster Greenblade, maybe go down a little bit in power level, due to the fact that there are less packs and less deserts total on average.
Totally, man. Yeah.
I love that take, Eugene. And this is a question for you then. I know you recently had a 6-person pod where it was for your tournament play. What were you and your team thinking about in the early picks of pack 2? Were you still like, okay, this is a bomb, I can't pass this, or this is a premium removal, I can't pass this? Or were you looking to maybe wanting to splash now that you were kind of in your colors? What were you thinking?
Definitely can never pass a bomb. Doesn't matter when or where you are in the draft. Almost never. Sorry, I just want to caveat that with almost never. And we can get into another time. It's a pretty deep conversation about when you could, the very rare situation where you can, but 99% of the time, never pass any bomb ever. And then for premium removal, mostly like 90% of the time won't pass it, but it really depends. That one depends. There's more factors to consider. Like, it really depends on what the other card you're gonna take over that premium removal, if you're gonna pass it, is, and how badly you need that card. You also have to consider what you think the person you're passing to is in, and what's the likelihood of them wanting that premium removal card, or whatever card you're passing that that is really good. So there's a lot of things to consider: how badly you want the card, and how badly you think the person you're passing to might want the card you're passing.
So by the end of pack 1, hopefully you focused in on a color and are forming some kind of game plan or archetype. So when you open pack 2, sometimes it's a bomb that doesn't match that. And this is like your chance to see, can I splash this bomb? Is this going to be the final color decision for my deck. Let's say you're mostly red-black and you open a Bruce Tarl, red-black splashing white, and this is the direction I go to for the rest of this pack. So that's what I'm looking at in pack 2.
Brian, what if you are, you're red, black, and blue, and then you open, like you're red, black, and blue by the end of pack 1, and then you open Bruce Taro pack 2. What?
Oh yeah, okay. We're always picking Bruce Tarl, and for me, I'm always going to try to make it work. If that means abandoning some of my blue picks or making a wild 4-color deck that doesn't quite get there, that's I'm going to try.
Foreshadowing right there.
I love that, and I think one of the key elements that you both are talking about is kind of staying a little bit open, a little bit more flexible, especially not depend too much on pack 1, where you are going to think about those, but you're not going to stay close to the potential of pack 2. And then maybe mid pack 2, then you're really solidified and use it. And like you said, Brian, like start thinking like, okay, I'm not going to play these blue cards, which is, I think, really good for our listeners to kind of hear and think like, oh, so I can let go of picks. I don't have to marry my picks that early on in this draft format. But I mean, if I'm wrong, please jump in.
You good?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to really thinking about and evaluating cards. And
yes.
I think in this set, there are some cards that are very powerful or seem very powerful. But you have to remember that we're playing a 6-person draft, and there's gonna be just a lot fewer payoffs, and a lot fewer payoffs, right? So like,
yeah, if you're trying to do a commit crime deck, but the payoffs don't come together, it's going to be weak. But also, you can speculate on a card you think is a bomb or very powerful, but it might not be because you haven't gone deep enough into archetype to really make it work.
Yeah, it is harder to go deeper. You're not going to be able to go as deep in an archetype as you normally would if you're used to playing like the 8-player, drafts on Arena or anywhere else. And just to go back, what I was saying is that the payouts for like crime committing, right? There's going to be fewer of those too. So like, obviously you want as many of those as you can get, but sometimes you're only going to be able to get like 3, and that might be enough, or it might not. Who knows?
No, I 100% agree. I know that some of the times I feel that these decks are definitely not as strong when we're drafting compared to like my Arena draft picks. But that doesn't mean that they lack in power, especially when you've navigated the draft in such a way that your deck comes out to being, okay, this is a good deck. It doesn't have all the premium cards, but it has a lot of them, and I have a lot of ways to interact. And I love how you guys are telling the viewers here or the listeners here that, you need to have your removals, because if your opponent does have, after match 1, because this is a best of 3, if they have maybe 2 bombs, then you save your 2 removal spells for the big bombs that you cannot deal with otherwise, and you play from there. And that's the other thing I think is one of the key factors that hinges here is that we're not playing best of 1. We're playing best of 3. And I think that makes a huge difference in this format and moving forward. Well, now that we have all of the kind of details of how we like to think about the draft, we're actually going to examine one of the drafts that Brian was able to do recently. So Brian, why don't you walk us through your draft here?
Okay, so I opened up Archangel of Tithes. It's 1 and 3 white for a 3/5 flying angel. And when it's untapped, the opponent can't attack you unless they pay 1 for each attacking creature. And when Archangel attacks, they can't block your creatures unless they pay 1 for each blocker. And the Pactor is also Bounding Felidar. That's 5 and a white for 4/7 Cat Mount Beast. When it attacks, put a 1 counter on each creature that you control, and you gain 1 life for each of those creatures. Saddle 2, so when it attacks when saddled, you get that. Mirage Mesa is also in the pack. It lets you choose a mana of any color when an ETB is tapped, and you can add a mana of that color, and then there's a green-white desert as well. I ended up choosing Archangel Tives because it's so much power. You can't pass that, and obviously now I'm thinking, okay, I'm trying to be white, really white.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Archangel is definitely the right pick. I don't think any of the other cards in the pack come close here. So what would you get in your second, the next pick?
Yeah, so there's Eartha Joe, Frontier Mentor. It's a 2/4, and it creates a Merc when it ETBs, and whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or player, you copy it, and you can choose new targets for the copy, so it doubles up on your activated abilities there. And then there's Bandit's Hall, 3 mana for an artifact that adds 1 mana of any color. You can put a loot counter on it every time you commit a crime, and you can pay 2 and tap it to remove 2 loot counters and draw a card. There's also Mobile Homestead, which is a 2 mana for an artifact vehicle. It has haste if you control a mount. When it attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you put on the battlefield tap. It has Crew 2 for a 3/3. And there was also a green-white dual land here as well. So I was looking at those cards, and I ended up choosing the green-white dual land over Bandit's Hall and Eartha Joe, which were the next cards that I was looking at.
So Brian, why? Can you run us through what you were thinking when you took the land instead of the other cards?
So my mindset was, okay, I want to be white, but I also know I'm going to want to play other colors, and I want to get fixing as soon as possible. In our last team draft, there weren't any deserts until pack 2 for me. So Eartha Joe, probably the most powerful card if you build around it, but I really don't like going Boros, and if I pick it here, I feel like I'm getting kind of locked into it because I'm going to be heavy white already. So the only other card there was Bandit's Hall, which does fix, which does have a lot of other advantages. I was trying to keep it simple. I think the green-white dual land, I could build some kind of mount deck. Maybe I'm splashing a green, where I could try to get a curve going. But that was my thinking for picking it here.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure exactly what I would have taken. I probably would have taken Eartha Joe here. But for me, it would be Eartha Joe or Bandit's Hall over the land here. I just don't like to speculate on a green if I'm not already in green and I don't know, like, I'm gonna get green. And since you're already very heavy white, and Eartha Joe's a powerful card, I would have just probably taken Eartha Joe.
For me, in retrospect, I think it's the Bandit's Hall because I'm gonna get all the fixing. It's a more guaranteed fixing, and it can draw cards too.
Cool. I actually like both of those takes. I think in Arena Best of One, taking the land here might have been the better choice. If we take into consideration what we see on 17 lands data, where green and white is just a very powerful archetype. So taking the green and white land might be the best pick in that scenario. But I'm thinking that in our 6-person pod, cutting that Eartha Joe, having a strong card might actually be better in this scenario. So I can see both of your guys' arguments on both sides on why you would take these.
So in my third pack, there's Bovine Intervention, 1 and a white for an instant that destroys artifact or creature, and its controller gets a 2/2 white ox creature token. There's also Dance of the Tumbleweeds, 1 and a green for a sorcery with Spree. For an extra 1 mana, you can search your library for a basic land or desert card, put it onto the battlefield untapped. And for an extra 3, create an XX at Green Elemental, where X is the number of lands you control. There's also Giant Beaver, 4/4 Vigilance for 3 and a green. When it attacks while saddled, put a 1/1 counter on target creature that saddled it. Saddle 3. There's also Outlaw Medic, 1 and a white for a 1/3 human rogue with lifelink. When it dies, draw a card. I ended up choosing Dance of Tumbleweeds of I like the Beaver a lot, but Dance of the Tumbleweeds fixes me, and I think is pretty good card in team draft. So that's what I ended up with here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is the right pick, or that's a very good pick here. And it kind of worked out, right? Because he took the green-white desert before this. So that looks like that worked out pretty well.
Yeah. And my next pack, my pick 4, I opened Botanical Sanctum. It's a green-blue land that enters tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. There's Getaway Glamour, 1 white for an instant with Spree. For an extra 1, you can exile target non-token creature, return to the battlefield at the next end step. For 2 more, you can destroy target creature if no creature has greater power. There's also a Desert's Dew, 1 in a black for an instant that gives a creature -2/-2 plus an extra -1/-1 for each desert you control. There's also Hard Bristle Bandit, a 1/1 plant rogue that you can tap to add 1 mana of any color. When you commit a crime, you can untap it. I chose Desert's Dew because I wanted removal here, and I already had a desert. But I could see Glamour.
Yeah, I think either one is pretty good. Desert's Dew, I feel like it's a stronger card than Glamour, but I don't know. And Glamour was in your color, so that was
Yeah,
interesting.
Glamour's
I
one of
wonder-
my colors, though. So yeah, it probably makes sense to get it here, actually. Okay, and for pack 1, pick 5, I choose a Giant Beaver. And rounding out the pack, I get a Spinewoods Paladin, a Tornado, Bandit Hall Wheels, and I choose it. Stop Cold, Botanical Sanctum is next, the green-blue Fastland. And then High Noon and Full Steam Ahead and Armadillo. Pack 2, pick 1, I opened up Aven Interrupter. That's 1 white for a 2/2 Bird Rogue with Flash and Flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile target spell, it becomes plotted, and spells your opponents cast from graveyards or exile cost 2 more to cast. So essentially plotted cards cost 2 more to cast. There's also a Dance of the Tumbleweeds in the pack, a Giant Beaver. There was Soured Springs, the blue-black dual land. There's Port Razor, 3 red for an Orc Pirate. That's a 4/4. When it deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control, and there's an additional combat phase. And I went with the Aven Interrupter here. Pack 2, pick 2, there's a Duelist of the Mind. 1 in a blue for flying vigilance star 3, and its power is equal to the number of cards you draw on this turn. When you commit a crime, you may draw and discard. There was also Consuming Ashes, 2 black for an instant. Exile target creature. If it had mana value 3 or less, surveil 2. There's a Mirage Mesa. And I ended up choosing Consuming Ashes here. There wasn't really good green or white cards for me in the pack.
That worked out, picking the Consuming Ashes there, because, Trevor, you're passing Trevor, and I mean, we know in retrospect that he was blue-black, but cutting that crucial removal
interesting
there.
though. Interesting that, but I also passed Duels in Mind. Do you think that's okay? Because Consuming Ashes is really powerful too.
Either one is going to be really good for him, and I think he ends up taking the Duelist next.
Yes. Yeah. And it makes sense that he's in blue. I did not see much blue that last pack. But yeah, I think it's a tough call.
But I was passing to Trevor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I was blue and white. So on the first pack, you definitely wouldn't be seeing much blue, and if you look back, you didn't see much white at all, because I was taking blue and white, and then whatever blue left over, Trevor was taking the blue, and so that's probably why you didn't see any. Actually, if you didn't see any white, really. I mean, you had one white. By the end of pack 1, you have 1 white card. Except, I mean, not counting High Noon
Wow.
that you took in
Yeah.
pick 11, but you had 1 white card, and it was the Archangel of Ties with triple, which is triple white.
I know. So when I open Aven Interrupter, I'm like, yes. But yeah, I really don't like where Archangel Times puts me in this draft. Pack 2, pick 3. I open Aloe Alchemist. 1 and a green for a 3/2 plant warlock with trample. When it becomes plotted, you can give a creature +3/+2 and trample. You can plot it for 1 and a green. There's Congregation Gryph, 1 green white for a 1/4 with flying and lifelink. Hippogriff mount. When it attacks while saddled, it gets +X for each mount you control. And as saddled 3, there's Patient Naturalist, 2 and a green for a 2/3 ETB mill 3. And create a treasure token if you can't put a land from among the milled cards into your hand. Throw from the saddle, 1 and a green. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 on a turn. Put a 1 counter on it if it's a mount. Then it deals damage to target creature you don't control. It's a sorcery. There's also an Abraded Bluffs, the red-white dual desert. I end up choosing Congregation Gryph here, feeling like it's a good sign. Pack 2, pick 4. There's 3 steps ahead. It's blue for an instant with Spree. You can add 1 and a blue to counter target spell. You can add 3 to create a token that's a copy of a creature you control or artifact. And you can add 2 to draw 2 cards and discard a card. In the pack, there's also a Desperate Bloodseeker, 1 and a black for a 2/2 lifelink, ETB mill 2 target player. There's a Holy Cow, 2 and a white for a flash flying 2/2, ETB scry 2, gain 2. There's a Mirage Mesa, and there's a Spinewoods Paladin, and there's a Lonely Royal, which is a white-blue dual land. I choose 3 steps ahead, thinking it's too powerful to pass. Hoping
Good
I
thing
can
you
play it.
did, because Trevor would have gotten that one too.
Yeah. Pack 2, pick 5. There's Getaway Glamour, Outlaw Stitcher, which is 3 and a blue for a 1/4. ETB makes a 2/2 zombie, and you put 2/1/1 counters on it for each spell you've cast other than the first this turn, and you plot it for 4 and a blue. There's Bristleback Sentry, 1 and a green for a 3/3 defender, and it can attack if a power 4 or greater creature. There's Voracious Varmint and Sterling Keykeeper as well. The 2 mana green and white creatures. I end up choosing Getaway Glamour. It's a powerful card. But I am looking for creatures.
I was noticing that I think you have 7 creatures up to this point, and I don't think all of them are making your deck. So it was interesting, but I'm glad you said that at the end, that it was like, oh, you realize here that you are looking for creatures. So that's good. Always be aware of kind of like what your deck needs, what it has, and then how to like round that out to make a good deck.
Yeah, I say that, and then I choose a Pillaged Bog here in pick 6, which is black green for a sorcery. Look at the top X cards, where X is twice the number of lands you control, and put 1 into your hand. You can plot it for 1 in green black, and I choose it over an Omen Port Vigilante, which is also in the pack. And rounding out the rest of the pack, I get a Vengeful Townsfolk, I take up the Shield, Lonely Royal, which is the blue-white dual land, Great Train Heist, Corrupted Conviction, Ride Down, and a Forest. And pack 3, pick 1. I see Paravec the Punisher, 1 black for Human Warlock. It's the 3/3 whenever you commit a crime. You can exile target black card from your graveyard and copy it, and you may cast a copy and lose 2 life. There's Bovine Intervention. There's Eartha Joe again. There's Hollow Marauder and Steer Clear. And there's also a Festering Gulch, the green-black dual land. I chose Hollow Marauder here. It's just great power. Pack 3, pick 2. There's another Karavec. There's another Pillaged Bog, Congregation Gryph, Hard Bristle Bandit, Vault Plunderer, and Wanna Gryph. I chose Congregation Gryph again here because I needed mounts bad. So pack 3, pick 3, I get past a Seraphic Steed. That's green and a white for a 2/2 unicorn mount with first strike and lifelink. When it attacks while saddled, you get a 3/3 flying angel token, and it has saddle 4. So just an absolute crazy bomb that shouldn't be passed. Maybe Trevor was just, really needed something for his deck. Maybe he didn't see it, but I snapped that right up. Nothing else in consideration. I'm just, praising the Lord. Pack 3, pick 4. There's a Sterling Supplier, 4 and a white for a 3/4 flying bird soldier. ETBs, put a 1/1 counter target creature you control. There's Voracious Varmint, and I choose the Festering Gulch because I really want to play my black cards, and I know it's going to be a stretch. That's the green-black desert. Pack 5, I have the choice between Inspiring Vantage, that's the red-white dual land that ETB is tapped unless you control 2 or fewer lands. Requisition Rage, which is a sorcery for 1 white mana with Spree, and you could add 1 to destroy an artifact, you can add 1 to destroy an enchantment, you could add 1 to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. There's Outlaw Medic, and I choose Ambush Gigapede, which is pretty loose, I think, because of 2 black mana.
Yeah, I think I would have taken Requisition Raid in your situation because it's in your color. I know you're trying to go black, but this is a double black. It's rough.
Yeah.
Did you end up in playing black, or you just picked green white?
I did, but to play my black sources were so few that I did not end up playing the Gigapede or the Consuming Ashes, but I played Pillage the Bolg and a couple other black cards. And pack 3, pick 6, I get a Beastbond Outcaster. Really surprised to see it this late. A Sterling Hound comes next in pack 3, pick 7, followed by Hard Bristle Bandit, Conduit Pylons, Sheriff of Safe Passage, Outlaw Medic, Reach for the Sky, Steer Clear, and the Mountain.
Was anybody else playing green?
Let me see. Matt was playing green-white, and Angela was playing red-green. My deck ended up being green-white, splashing black, and the issue of the deck was I didn't have many early plays in the 2-drop department.
But do you is there even any 2-drops other than maybe that 3/1 Airings, the 3/1 Mount? Like, are there any 2-drops worth playing?
Yeah, I think Voracious Varmints worth playing. I ended up playing an Outlaw Medic just to have something in the slot. And yeah, played Angelo, and he played a aggressive red-green deck with a lot of 2-drops, including Discerning Peddler. Maybe they'll reprint it with Seth Manfield as a as a art.
Manfield's favorite card.
Yeah, and he ended up killing me with a good green-red curve. We went to game 3 and I did miss a color, but he had a great. The deck was a little weak to curving out, as I guess it's a weakness of some of my decks.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is maybe just getting tunnel visioned on a few early picks might have tilted this draft that direction, because maybe if he had gone a little bit red, and I want this to open up a conversation in the 6-player pod, like I'm thinking red is just bumps up a level where it's like, okay, red is actually good in a 6-person pod where you can start thinking about like pivoting into that color rather than staying your main colors. At least it would have opened up some doors to your draft, looking back at it.
Yeah, looking at the draft, there were a lot of red 2-drops that went around. Red was pretty open. Not sure if I would have been happy with that kind of deck, but it was definitely available to me. And those 2-drops did end up, being really good against the deck.
I don't know. I looking at your first pack, or like the first pack of the draft, you didn't really get. I don't see any red cards worth picking, other than the white red Earth of Joe on your second pick. So I'm not sure if that would have been viable in your position. Was the person passing to you in red?
No. Trevor chose a couple red cards, but he was blue-black.
Oh, Trevor was passing to you?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
In pack 1. Yeah.
There were a lot of red cards, it looks like, coming in pack 2. But by then you were already because you also didn't get any white cards in pack 1. You were already so embedded into green in pack 1. I guess you could have gone green red.
Yeah, that makes sense here. I was so Archangel of Tides focused.
Yeah, because by pack in the pack one, you literally have one white card.
I think opening up Aven Interrupter just kind of like made me put the blinders on in pack 2. Pick one.
You didn't even have any Congregation Grifts yet by then. So yeah, I mean, Aven Interrupter is a great card too.
And then I get a pack 3. I mean, I get a pick 3 Congregation Griff. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, here we are. Yeah, I think for a little bit there wasn't that much red. The picks look justifiable. Up until
I mean, I think it's fine, right? And you end up getting that Seraphic Steed. So I mean, the deck looks okay given what you could have done. It looks fine to me. Maybe, I mean, yeah. It's good to see that there are other avenues you could have gone potentially, but this is probably the right way to go. I feel.
So there was an interesting gameplay by the Ham where he plays Silver Deputy on 2, and there's people in his comment section because he streams live, and they're all telling him how they think that is a terrible card, that you should never put that card in your deck. And you hear Paul Cheon say the same thing, like Silver Deputy, when he sees it on the other side, he's like, yeah, don't ever put that card in your deck. What Ham said was interesting. He's all like, well, if it's my turn to play, what do you want to draw on turn 3? And then he tells his viewers, you want to draw a land because you want to hit your lands on curve. And I never thought about Silver Deputy the same way, because I'm looking at your pack 2 pick 9. You took Take of the Shield, which I think is a powerful card. But if you are hungry for creatures and you have enough non-creature spells, maybe take the Silver Deputy there. It also fixes your mana because you were shy of mana. That might have been a point where taking a card like that would have helped your deck rather than hurt your deck. There's also the Patient Naturalist in that one. So you could have also had some form of fixing in that way. Was that ever something that you thought about? Also, I just wanted to add, do cards like Silver Deputy go up in a 6-person pod when you see your kind of pool of cards and they're in 3 to 4 different colors?
I will say I would have played a Silver Deputy if I had one. I did not. I'm blind to Silver Deputy still, but I mean, Ham brings up a great point, and he is all about hitting land drops. He never wants to miss his 3rd or 4th land drop, and he'll run 18 lands, do whatever it takes. He's really focused on just making sure hit your land drops and curve out. And that makes total sense. I'm never picking Silver Deputy. I wish I have him, but maybe I'll get one in a pack that has weaker cards. But yeah, I think it might go down in team draft a little. I think if your deck needs that slot, but I feel like it just becomes it loses value pretty quick.
But if you had Eartha Joe, Silver Deputy.
Could have had 2 Eartha Joes, yeah.
2 Eartha Joes. 2 ride downs.
Well, that was awesome, Brian. Thank you for leading us through your packs and picks. And now we're going to check out Eugene's draft and what he picked in his pick order. So here we go, Eugene. Let us know what you did.
All right. So I was sitting 2 spots away from Brian. So it was, and I was passing to
Trevor.
And then
Who's
passing to me? Who's passing to me, Brian?
Matt.
So pack 1, pick 1. The relevant cards are Satoru, the Infiltrator, the Human Ninja Rogue, 2 the cast, 1 blue, 1 black, 2/3 menace, and whenever Satoru or another non-token creature ETBs under your control, if none of them were cast or no mana was spent to cast them, draw a card. And there's Bovine Intervention. The white 2 mana instant, destroy target artifact or creature and create its controller creates a 2/2 Ox token. There's a Tyrant Scorn, the blue-black instant, destroy target creature with mana value 3 or less, or return target creature to its owner's hand. There's a Dance of the Tumbleweeds, Giant Beaver, Mystical Tether, which is the 3 mana white enchantment. You can cast it with Flash if you pay 5, and when it ETBs, exile target artifact or creature. So I take Mystical Tether here because it's a monocolor removal that's really powerful because it can be an instant and it also removes anything.
Yeah, I think that's an easy pick, safe pick. It's not the best removal, but it's everything you said about it makes it the first pick here.
Yeah, I would rather have a Lasso by the Law, which is the 4-mana white enchantment that basically does the same. No, it does better, right? It exiles a non-land permanent,
Yep.
which is so much better, and it creates a 1/1 mercenary token. But it wasn't here, so we take Mystical Tether. It's a common card, which no bombs. So my pack 1 pick 2, I see the the blue-green fast land, the Botanical Sanctum. There's the Getaway Glamour. Plan the Heist, the 4-mana blue, surveil 3 if you have no cards in hand, and then draw 3 cards as plot 4. There's another Tyrant Scorn. There's the Wrangler of the Damned, the 5-mana flash. It's a gold, blue, white card. It's a 1/4 human soldier, and at the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand, create a 2/2 flying spirit. And then the other card in the pack is there's a Desert Stew and a Eroded Canyon, which is the blue-red desert. So I ended up taking this pick took me some time. I was really considering between Wrangler of the Damned and Desert Stew. I think white black is more powerful. It is, and then if I took Desert Stew, I would have had 2 pretty decent removals in the beginning. But I ended up taking Wrangler of the Damned because my first pick was white, and I could cast it as an instant, Mystical Tether, and recently got destroyed by a blue-white deck. So I felt like, hey, maybe we can do it here. And then I also think that because I passed this Desert Stew, it's interesting that I might have solidified a little bit more Trevor's black-blue deck. But I don't know. I don't know if he ended up taking Desert Stew or Tyrant Scorn here. Either one would have been really good for him.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you haven't talked about Getaway Glamour, which I think I would have chosen here. I think it's comparable to your first pick, I think. And I think Desert Dew is a better removal, but it's in black. So I'm looking at Getaway Glamour, then Desert Stew. I hear what you're saying about the blue-white archetype being a thing. This guy could even wheel Wrangler of the Damned.
Yeah, it might have. Who knows? But the thing is, I think it might have wheeled. But if I ended up taking Desert Stew, which is the other card I was considering, I don't think I would have even taken Wrangler if it did wheel, because I would have gone down a totally different path by then.
Yeah, but Wrangler slightly splashable because of the 1 blue pip. But yes,
well, it's splashable, but the strategy of not playing things on your turn that's a hard one to splash.
Right. Yeah, because your deck ended up being super focused. So yeah, I hear what you're saying.
All right, so my next pick, pack 1, pick 3. Not too many relevant cards here. I mean, there was a Mobile Homestead, a Giant Beaver, Iron Fist Pulverizer, Outlaw Medic, Sterling Hound, and a Sterling Supplier. There's also a Take Up the Shield. I ended up taking the Sterling Supplier. That's the 5-mana Bird Soldier, 3/4 flying, 1 ATBs. Give another creature +1/+1 counter.
I think Take Up the Shield is generically more powerful. Mobile Homestead's also in the pack, and I think that could be a good card as well. Sterling Supplier definitely solid, but I think I take Up the Shield here.
Yeah, I wanted to get Gold the Flyer route because it's really powerful, and I think the flying deck is even more powerful in the 6-person team draft. Just flyers are always powerful, but even more so because removal is a little more scarce.
Right.
And then the next pick, there's a Treasure Dredger, which is the 2-mana 2/2 black creature that tap 1, tap it, pay a life, create a treasure. There's a Geyser Drake, the 3-mana 2/3 flying Drake, and as long as it's not your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less. There's a Holy Cow, and I end up taking Holy Cow because again, I'm sticking to white. I want a flyer, and then it also works with the don't cast a spell on your turn.
Yeah, it's just better than Geyser Drake in general. I agree with this.
Yeah, and so my first 4 picks are all white. So I just really wanted to cut white and stick to the white archetype. And my next pick, I ended up taking the green-white desert. There was nothing else in the pack that was really playable for me other than maybe Harrier Strix. But I took the green-white land thinking maybe I might pivot to another color. I wasn't solidly locked into green yet. Sorry, I wasn't solidly locked into blue because the only card in blue was my Wrangler of the Damned. And then my next pick, I take a Stop Cold and I round out the pack with Bovine Intervention, Inventive Wingsmith, Outlaw Medic, Geyser Drake, the Harrier Strix Wheels to me. And so pack two, pick 1, I open some pretty good cards here, and it was a tough decision. So I opened a Canyon Crab, which is a 2-mana crab. 2-mana blue crab, that's a 0/5. And you can pump it +2, -2 for 2 mana, and then at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast a card, you loot. There was also a Getaway Glamour, a Lassoed by the Law, which is the really good white removal enchantment, and there was also Repulse, which I feel like is probably the best blue removal. The 3-mana instant target return a creature to its owner's hand and draw a card. I was deciding between Repulse and Canyon Crab. In retrospect, I mean, hindsight is 2020. I should have taken Repulse because who knew I was going to end up with 3 Canyon Crabs, and nobody was going to pick the Canyon Crab anyway. So, but at this point I didn't have a crab yet, and I so far I felt like my deck was actually really in this blue-white don't cast a spell archetype, like because I had Holy Cow, I had Stop Cold, I had the Inventive Wingsmith, Geyser Drake, like these are all really good for that deck. So I just really wanted to, and the crab is really good blocker, lets you loot. I just really wanted to just keep going in that archetype. But I could see taking Lasso or Repulse here as well.
Yeah, I think you kind of tunnel visioned on the archetype because to me the obvious pick is Lassoed by the Law. And just to rewind a little bit, you're mostly white through your pack 1. The first blue card you commit to, besides the blue-white signpost, is Stop Cold in pack 1, pick 6. In that pack, there's also Bandit's Hall, which I think is the correct pick there. And there's even a Jailbreak Scheme, which I think is better than Stop Cold, but I know you're trying to do instants. So I don't know for sure which of those is better, but I think Bandit's Hall is better than both. So you could have stayed mostly white, and you open Lassoed by the Law here. And that's where I would be. Obviously, the crab is a powerful payoff, and you're already doing the archetypes, so I understand. But Lassoed by the Law leaves you more flexible, and it's just so strong. I think you got to pick it here.
Yeah, so going back to the Bandit's Hall pick, yeah, I think it is definitely stronger than Stop Cold. But I was trying to just stick to 2 colors, so I didn't really need fixing. And I know it draws you a card, which is amazing. So yeah, I think you're right. That definitely would have been the pick there, the Bandit's Hall. But I did, at the end of my pack 1, I did get some playable blue cards like the Geyser Drake, and which fits in that archetype. And then the Harrier Strix, although it doesn't, it is a flyer, so I was trying to go the flying route. And yeah, Lassoed by Law. I mean, hey, if I knew I was going to get 3 crabs, definitely would not have taken the crab. But I think in that position, I would have taken Repulse over Lasso only because an instant, and only because I was trying to stick to the instant don't cast a spell on my turn strategy.
I hear you. Synergy is great. Lassoed's power, I think, trumps everything there. And if you chose the Bandit Hall, you only have Geyser Drake and Harrier Strix in blue. So it's kind of like I like to be super flexible in pack 2, where if I can be, and choosing a powerful white card here leaves you with the most options. But I understand Canyon Crab, good payoff. You're in the archetype, makes sense.
Canyon Crab.
I do have something to add here. So in a 6-person pod, we can see the cards that are being passed around, and we know that these pool of cards are going to stay with us, unlike Arena, where we may never see these cards again. I noticed that, at least in the last team draft I did, there were a lot of voracious varmints and ways to get rid of enchantments that just sit in people's sideboards. And since it's best of 3, I think, while I agree with Brian, the pick here for me would have been Lassoed by the Law. I'm wondering if, knowing the information that we know, Repulse is still the better card in this situation, in this specific deck, because it also draws you another card. So it's tempo, instant, draws you a card, and you're not going to get outdone, especially by the next card that's in this pack, which is Voracious Varmint. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree. Repulse over Crab. If you're not choosing Lasso here.
I mean, I would have taken Repulse over Lasso here if the Crab wasn't here. But Lasso is still also really good. So either one, the pick should not have been Crab here. But,
Okay.
But hey, all right. Next pack, nothing. There's really nothing in the pack for me. I ended up just taking Bounding Felidar, which is the 6-mana 4/7 mount. Pack 3.
I want to talk about it. Yeah, let's come back, because let's just say you're choosing Lasso by the Law. I'm looking at Ruthless Lawbringer in this pack, and I think it's under consideration. If you're mostly white and you have literally Geyser Drake and Harrier Strix plus the Sheriff, you can choose Ruthless Lawbringer here, which I think is a really strong card, and possibly splash either blue or black. But that's just how I look at it. But yeah, other than that, Bounding Felidar is super powerful. I think Ruthless Lawbringer is a consideration.
So the reason why I didn't take that one is because I knew I was getting cut black. So if you, from during my pack 1, I was not getting past any black cards, any playable black cards.
Mm-hmm.
So the person, so I knew I was getting cut black. So I just didn't, and I didn't have any fixing for black. I didn't want to go into black because of that reason.
Makes sense.
And it worked out because I didn't, because I was getting cut black both ways. And the person,
Mm-hmm.
So both people next to me were cutting black. So anyway, so the next pick, there's a Port Razor, which I had never seen this card before. It's a 5-mana red Orc Pirate. It's a 4/4, and when it deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. And it can't attack a player it has already attacked this turn. Very relevant ability. So yeah, I mean it's double red. So I wasn't in red, so I didn't take it. Although it seems powerful. I don't know how good it is. Relevant cards. There's a Visage Bandit, which is the clone Loan Shark, which I like a little more than I used to. Now, 3/4 Shark. 4 mana, you can plot it for 4 if the ETBs, and you've cast 2 or more spells, draw a card. And then Phantom Interference. Look, talk about tunnel visioning on this don't cast a spell deck. I did exactly that, and I took Phantom Interference. Because I'm too deep. I'm in too deep. I got the crap. I'm just going all out at this point. And you could say that it's open. That archetype was open. I don't know if I realized it at the time, but it certainly was open. And at the end of the draft, the deck, it was very open, and I ended up with 3 crabs and 3 holy cows. So that was pretty cool. And 2 of these counterspells.
Yeah, it's super streamlined, super solid version of the archetype, and I think your tunnel vision paid off.
Yeah, it was a little bit of luck. But yeah, so I certainly don't think I could have splashed or gone black in any way, because it was just gone, all the black cards. And if I had, I think there's a red white deck I could have drafted looking back. So if I had not gone the blue route, right? Because seems very open, and there's a lot of good red cards running around. So that could have been a deck, but
Yeah,
I
but
don't know. What do you
think
like more, red white or blue white? What do you think is better?
I think blue white's better.
Yeah.
That's an interesting call. I think best of one arena. I think red white does better than blue white, but I think in our 6-person pod, I really like the blue white, especially because of all the evasion connected with blue white, which you took the flyers, which is really awesome. Which I think makes it better than the Boros deck in the 6-person format. Interesting how pack 2 pick 1. You picked the crab, where Brian argued for the Lasso by the Law. And he made an even better argument to get the Ruthless Lawbringer the following pick because of the 1 token it makes. It enters the battlefield, but you would need a black source, but it is still 1 black pip. And then on the following pack, there was the Soured Springs. So looking back, it is 2020. I see what you're saying, Eugene. Like, it could have lined up. But
but I think Brian's argument for taking Lasso by Law and Ruthless Lawbringer, I would not have been in blue, right? Because he was saying in pack 1, I was mostly white. And then had I not taken the crab, pick 1, pack 2, pick 1, I would take another white card. And then if I taken the Ruthless Lawbringer, it would be another white card. So in pack 2, pick 3, that blue-black land wouldn't be as useful just because it's blue and black and not white and black. But
I think you still choose it there because you have the sheriff, the blue white signpost. So you still that's my mindset. So I can still splash the sheriff if I'm white, end up being white black with the Soured Springs Desert. So I think it's still if I have a blue card that I can splash, I think the desert's still good there.
I think I just value the synergy more than you guys. It's like I wouldn't I wouldn't want to play the sheriff if I don't have the support for the don't cast the spell synergy.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't even think about that. Something I need to think about more. No, the deck was super solid.
It looks good though, but who knows? Maybe there's not enough. Maybe there's not enough removal. Is the only thing. I think the only removal I have is I end up getting a Journey to Nowhere pack 3, pick 1.
Passing the Steed, which gets to me.
Steed. Yes, because and the reason why I did that is because I knew I was getting cut black both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that if I I didn't think the two opponents next to me were in, and I was getting a lot of white. So I didn't think that they were in green white. They might have been in green. I didn't see much green. So they would either waste a pick on that or pass it, and they passed it.
Yeah, godlike read.
You got to read what you're seeing, right? And you can, and by pack 3, you should really know because you'll see both ways what people are passing you. But I don't have enough removal. I think is the problem. Just 2 counter spells and that Lasso by Law or Repose would have been really good, and a Bovine Intervention and 1 stop cold. It's like 4 removal. Oh, I have a Mystical Tether. Oh, okay, it's like 5. They're not great though. They're definitely not premium.
Well, you're also counting counter spells removal, which I think is a little bit of a stretch, but it's something.
Oh, I have 3 counter spells. Okay, I have a Mind Break. I got a Mind Break trap.
Oh my god!
I actually ended up with 2 stop codes. 2 stop codes and a Mind Break. 3 counter spells.
Yeah, I don't have that much removal in my deck either. So
Ryan, I'm going to make the deck, and I think we need to play this one out.
Yeah, I think your deck's better than mine, but I want to see how good blue white is. But I will say, Cactus Sure Shot owns the blue white deck.
All right, gentlemen. So after going through these drafts and these picks, how well do you think we did at following our own advice that we gave at the beginning of the podcast?
I didn't pass any bombs or super strong removal. I don't know if I can say the same for Eugene.
I certainly passed super strong removal. and a bomb, but I feel like the bomb, the Seraphic Steed bomb was justified, but yeah, I think my biggest mispick was taking the crab pack 2 pick 1 over either one of the good removal spells.
And I certainly had my fair share as well. So we're learning.
You heard it here first, folks. We're learning.
We're learning.
All right, y'all. Well, we're going to be signing off. So this is just a big thank you for everyone who is listening. Once again, we just want to thank Jared Jenkins for allowing us to use his wonderful music for our podcast. And also everyone who kind of just works together to make this community happen. So thank you for that. And I'm going to pass it on to my fellow members here to sign off.
Thanks, Jared. Everyone check out Jared Jenkins. You cannot find him on the internet.
You're going to have to use some astral projection to find this guy. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And a big thank you to the Chump Blockers for having this practice team draft with us over Draftmancer. Really recommend you guys to try that out if you haven't done it yet. It's a big help.